How many times do you need to see something to believe it? Shadow of God is a Shudder original directed by Michael Peterson, who's done shorts and films like Knuckleball. Check out his IMDb page for the full list of his work. This is written by Tim Cairo, who's done some other horror films in the past, including Dark Nature, a film that took place in the Canadian wilderness and I think had something to do with a monster in a cave, and it was also about exploring trauma. Speaking of trauma, Mark O'Brien's Mason, or Mace as it were, Mace out the window, had to reference Star Wars Episode 3 for some reason. He's a priest that is overcoming past trauma from his dad, Angus. Not Angus MacLeod, more in the pity, but Angus played by Sean Johnston, who was a very religious, nutty man that basically just pounded into him that he must be purged of his sins to become the ultimate person of divinity. Or something. So yes, this takes place with an adult, Mason Mace, and he does an exorcism somewhere in Mexico. It goes tits up, and he goes to South Alberta, Canada. Well, that's a bit of a jump. I mean, you can't exactly take a train there. Maybe you can. I don't really know the train routes from Mexico to Canada, at least not until more research is done. Speaking of research, I think this film could have used a little bit of research in how to make a horror movie that actually has some cohesion and doesn't have special effects that wouldn't have been out of place in 1975. Yes, unfortunately, I have to be a little bit mean towards this movie because while I recognize it is a low-budget effort and the central idea isn't the worst in the world, oh boy. What's the rest of the central idea? Well, basically, Angus is dead until he's not. And this is found out after Tanis, played by Jacqueline Byers. Thank you very much, Chris, aka the Durbinator. I can barely say the first name Jacqueline the right way. He knows why if he happens to be watching this. She was in Pray for the Devil. Speaking of horror movies and exorcism movies that were not any fucking good, that film was originally supposed to be called The Devil's Light, and then got changed and delayed for months on end. And then we saw it. Well, at least some people did, and you found out why. This basically is it's like a one, location shoot in the sense that they're in like this one house and then they're on the grounds of like, I think seemingly there's like a couple barns or something a little bit, down the road. And look, I don't mind low budget efforts, but this really reminded me a lot of this Final Sacrifice. I have expected somebody to say Rousdower a few times, or Sartorius is going to make an appearance and we were going to get a torch fight. We didn't get a torch fight, not exactly at least. Again, I recognize that this film had a low budget, and while the idea isn't the worst, the exorcism trope is well worn, and also this film is ambitious, yet underdeveloped. It is brimming with a few ideas, yet horribly undercooked. All of them are under goddamn cooked. The opening, oh boy. And then when Mason finds that his father is very much alive, he must figure out, okay, he's clearly back from the dead. Is he possessed? And if so, what is he possessed by? And then from there, we get other characters introduced, and this thing just plods along for like 80 goddamn minutes, and really started to annoy me very early on, and I stuck with it, thinking that it might get better. But nope, this is no The Cleansing Hour. That was another Shudder original about exorcisms. I'm sorry, this just didn't work for me. This really didn't work. There was a scene in this that was straight out of Raiders of the Lost Ark if it was made on about a 50-cent budget. I'm sorry. Once again, not good. So basically, yeah, we get a little bit of a setup, and then we just get people appearing to accomplish something to unleash an otherworldly, end-of-the-world power, and that's pretty much it right there. Obviously, as you can tell by the shirt back there, we are going to have some cultists involved, and yeah, we're going to have children summoning demons. Actually, we're not going to have children summoning demons. That would have actually been good. So nevertheless, it is on Shudder if you want to check it out. I'm sorry, this just didn't work for me. I'm not saying don't give it a shot. I'm not saying the director, the writer, the cast do not deserve to have other success, but this particular film did not work at all. And again, the special effects really, really fucking rotten. And the story itself actually just ends up not making a whole lot of sense, while having a couple things that could have made sense if they bothered to have a little bit of cohesion. Nevertheless, anyway, 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So, basically, his father shows back up. There's a guy named Glenn, who's an old cop friend of his. and says, hey, here's your dad. This, by the way, is a little bit after Mason Mace sees his dad jump off the bridge. And then he talks to Tanis, played by Jacqueline, who, I mean, she might as well just be typecast in all these exorcism movies. The exorcism in Mexico didn't go all that well, to go back a little bit further, where one father is killed, and it turns out a bunch of exorcists are actually being killed. Oh, it's a serial killer demon. That, again, would have been more interesting. So he sees his father, who not art in heaven, falling off the bridge, and Tanis is a therapist and a doctor and deals with patients that are not doing all that well. One patient claims that he saw somebody fall off a bridge and their brain splattered, and he's referencing religious stuff. And yeah, then there was this scene like outside of like a convenience store with great fog effects for 1975. It's just too bad this film came out in 2025. I don't want to harp on it. But if you can't make something look good, just don't fucking do it. Find different camera tricks. Just do something else. Please. Because then it just looks amateurish and it pulls viewers out of the experience. So, basically, Glenn ends up getting shot by some cultist people led by Bo, played by Adrian Ho. Or Hof, however you say it. I'm just going to say Ho because it's funnier. And his dad claims that he is possessed by God. That he feels bad for what he did to his son, but he's been preparing him for all this stuff and everything. And Tanis eventually ends up getting kidnapped by these cultists. They worship blue oysters. They've been a round kid and they've been a square kid. I'm just going to make more references to the final sacrifice. I mean, fucking again. Like, all they needed was fucking ski masks. That's all they needed. All we needed was a pop-out greeting card, divine thing. Anybody that knows what I'm talking about, that's not a compliment. I wrote down in my notes at least a few times terrible special effects. I'm not saying I can do any better. I'm not a filmmaker, but I am somebody that has seen the lowest of the lows, the highest of highs, and I have seen films with low budgets that have ambition that make it work. And this could have, with a little bit of restraint. There's a guy named Father Gabriel that apparently died off camera because they couldn't afford to show it. And cultists are fulfilling prophecies. Tanis gets captured by these cultists. And, oh yes, we see in a flashback that that basically, he being Mace Mason, had his hands nailed like this. Like, can't move. And Tanis basically is snide with the cultists at one point. They realize, hey, wait a second, she knows him. And the shopkeeper guy at the convenience store, I don't actually think they call them shopkeepers, so let's just roll with it. They had Luis Guzman-style hair, knew him from school. And that factors in a little bit later. Basically, if God takes form in the real world, it will not only end, but it will stop hassling Rob Thomas. The shopkeeper is in on it and hits Mason Mace over the head. Bo is the cult leader. This is bad, is what I noted. And there is a point where Angus, before this, Angus has like a light coming out of his skull, like from this cross, but it looks like he has a headlamp. Like he's the fucking killer from My Bloody Valentine. Except I had better writing, a better dialogue, a better performance. It's fine. It's fine. Trying to be nice. But when a movie is this bad, then I can't help but be a little bit snide myself. So they prepare Mason Mace, threatening to kill Jaqueline Byers. Yeah, there we go, Chris. You'll be laughing if you're still watching this. And they prepare him by doing a cross, on his forehead, blading him. It's a blade job that Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and even John Moxley would be proud of. Non-wrestling fans have no idea what I'm talking about. So, the idea is they're in this barn, and there's this sarcophagus that apparently has something. It looks like a mummy sarcophagus, and they summon it, or Mason Mace does, and the light's coming out, and if you go into the light, your head explodes, like one bald guy. And then we get this Divine Light going to all the cultists, and it really is like the end of Rares of the Lost Ark, except terribly done. I mean, my God. And then God shows up and has his face carved out, and it's like one of those, it's like a weird star kaleidoscope thing. It's like just peering into space, and he's doing this and all glowing, and Tanis gets free and chops off a guy's fingers and steals his gun and shoots at her, and then tries to shoot God, and that doesn't work. But then there was this earlier part where Mace ends up talking to, somebody evil, and it's clearly the devil, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a kind passerby that doesn't like God, but I think we've all been there. And he has this divine dagger thing and ends up stabbing God, but it actually ends up stabbing the devil. But then he ends up stabbing his dad also, because the editing is really, really bad. And there we are. God's dead, not able to come into the real world, so the world's fucked. Him and Tanis leave, and then the dad's corpse is taken to the hospital. And then is starting to twitch. Terrifier style. Whatever. I hate this shit. It was terrible. It just absolutely terrible. I'm sorry if anybody involved in this has a problem with what I said, but I cannot ignore when something is this bad from a production standpoint. I hope everybody has a successful career, but come on. Really? This wouldn't have even been out of place in 2005. And at least it would have been a little more, I could have been a little more forgiving. That being said, agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritlin, and I'll see you soon.